as I go into my 25th year in higher education, as the assistant superintendent, I'm the vice president of student services at San Joaquin Delta College. I am reminded of the saying that growing old is not for sissies, nor is the work of the student affairs professional. And so today I have just been so impressed by all of our speakers because they have dug deep and shared with us from a very vulnerable and courageous space about what it looks like to be student affairs professionals serving the students, the new students in our institutions that come to us with such wide variety of perspectives, of life experiences, and it is going to take us showing up as our authentic selves to really be able to continue to help support them in being successful. I am excited to bring up our last, but certainly not least of our speakers today. I have a very special place in my heart for this person. She's a mentee of mine, and I want to begin the introduction by sharing a quote by Viola Davis. Life is a relay race. When you receive the baton, you run like hell for your leg of the race. Then you pass the baton. Rosie Simpson understands the importance of passing the baton. She is a devoted foster child and youth advocate who mentors foster youth, creating dialogue surrounding the exploration of educational and career options. Coming from a double incarcerated household, navigating her adolescent years in Oakland, California, and lacking the foundation of a stable primary education, everything was falling into place for Rosie to continue on the same path as her parents. It was through the compassion of a strong mentor relationship and a resilient spirit that Rosie transcended from what could have been the potential negative statistic, and instead she became a TRIO alumni, a NUF alumni, and a college graduate. Like Rosie, students are entering our institutions with so much more than an academic transcript. They have a story to tell. While sharing her story, Rosie hopes to inspire thought by challenging how we as student affairs professionals are encouraging students to tell their own stories. From the Success Trio program at the University of the Pacific in Stockton, California, please give a warm NASPA welcome to Rosie Simpson.
Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, well, last but finally not least. That's how it goes, right? Okay. So your voice, your story. So we all have a story to tell, and students are entering post-secondary education with a suitcase full of non-academic needs. So how are we serving their needs that are non-academic? How are we mapping that? We really strive to map their goal towards graduation and for success, but how are we mapping their needs for their non-academic needs? All right, some cuteness. These experiences, their culture, background, social economic status, community, etc., they all shape the world they live in and how they perceive the world. But do we ask, where did they start? What's their experience? How did they get where they are today? And where did they start? Prior to my first year in college, I was attempting to survive high school, and it was a difficult attempt. I was living in an environment where I was unsure where I would be sleeping that next night, which typically opened and started at the end of my school day with an awkward conversation. Hey, what are you doing tonight? I was really searching for a place to stay that night. So I would lead into that conversation to see which group of my friends had plans that night and who I may be able to crash with. This conversation often led to me staying at one of my friend's house, and at some points, even sleeping on a teacher's couch. There's a group of people that walked into my high school one day, and they were facilitating a poetry class. It was kind of like a seminar, but they really got it that students in large inner city high schools their lives could be really transformed through poetry. So one of my friends dragged me into the class like they typically dragged me everywhere. I was pretty reluctant to go anywhere. And they just said, write about your life, write about, and I'm like, I don't want to go to this poetry thing. I'm not into the roses are red, violets are blue. But they said, just come and just write about your life and how that looks. And they did a couple of pieces. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is not your roses are red, violets are blue poetry. This has some to it. So I was able to kind of express myself and write my thoughts and my experiences down on paper. So I ask you, how are you creating spaces for your students to share their stories? Both physically and mentally. How are you challenging them? Because everything they bring onto campus to your institution is an experience they've been through. It's how they perceive the world and also how they feel the world perceives them. So through that class, that session, those people that came to my high school campus, I wrote a poem. And that poem, I'm going to share a couple poems with you this evening, and I'm going to make it quick so we can wrap this thing up. The first is called I'm Yelling, and that's really my pre-college piece that I wrote, and I'm going to read another one, I'm going to recite another one that I wrote while I was in college. So this little kid right here on the couch, that's where I started. And this was the way I was able to share my story. And when I was able to share my story, I feel like I was more accepted. I had more connections on campus, but I also opened the door for more people to relate to me, as well as to be an advocate for other people that are going through similar experiences. So, like I said, this poem is entitled I'm Yelling. And I wrote this while I was in college, before I even knew that I was going to make it, or before I was in college, before I even knew I was going to college. I'm yelling, but nothing's coming out my mouth. Why can't they hear me? I keep telling them to leave, but they don't understand the language I'm speaking. It's like I'm an alien and they're looking at me, but they don't understand my language because I'm not a dope fiend. I have to stay here because no one's come to rescue me. People think I don't want to leave. But I want out of this place, get the dope fiends out of my face. They need to face reality, but the dope is killing them mentally. And they don't care because they have a whole different imagery. And the dope makes them feel like they're somebody. As I act like I'm blind because I don't want to see how my life is here compared to how it's supposed to be. Do I have to leave? Are they taking me away? Sometimes I don't care because I don't want to stay. Yelling and screaming is what I hear so loud 10 pillows can't spare my fear. And when my fear is spared, it's because he's gone and left me here. A goodbye, but no hug is involved because it's emptiness love, but it's left me so cold. Why must I lie? Do your dirty work yourself. Why hate the social worker for giving me counseling? It might help. Why must I be involved in these family issues? 1 year left to be a kid, I try so hard to be the best daughter to you. And if you give me some of your time, then I'll be all right, but you can't because you're trying to make money. It's like your number one priority. Yeah, you came and got me when my mom wasn't doing right. And you, I think, for giving me the privilege to call you dad, and I'll always love you, but you're making me sad. I hate it when you put me through these family issues. It's giving me the blues. And until I have the guts to step up to you, I'll just sit in my room hoping the day will come when you'll know who is really who. And the one other person I could be with in my life doesn't know how to act right. For her drug actions, I paid by losing her at 8. Not physically, but mentally, because she lost base with reality. I cried inside, but when I reached my hands up, no one grabbed them to guide. And the crying inside wouldn't just go away. Because I knew the next time I see my mom, she'll be in an orange suit that isn't cute and in jail for drugs that she shouldn't have used. But now I'm older and facing reality. But I see her repeating herself with the next baby, on drugs and with a man that wasn't even clean enough to love. But she did it anyways. What must I do to make you realize that being wrong isn't right? It's time to stop messing up people's lives. It's time to put the alcohol and drugs away. I hope you grow up and be a mom someday. Because you know what? I'm breaking these chains. And this is something your grandkids will never have to debate. Because I'm the opposite of you, never giving them pain or mental abuse. I'll be with them all the time, never making them hurt inside. I'll be the mom for them that you never were for me. Because I could never abandon my kids and leave them incomplete. Thank you. So what would you think of me as a student if you had that information before I entered your institution? Would you advocate for me a little bit harder if you knew my story, if you knew the path I went down? So how are you creating spaces for students to share their story? What outlet are you giving them to share their story? There's a foster youth that I work with, and he paints remarkable pictures. And this is how he shares his story. He also raises a lot of money for foster kids through that. But this is how he shares his story. It was his outlet. And he describes his pictures, and it's his outlet of the system that he went through. The final piece that I'm going to share with you is called access. Before I share this last and final piece, it's going to be my exit piece. I just want you to really consider the space you're creating for students to share their story and how vulnerable it is for people to not only come up to a platform like this, but when a student presents themselves to you in such a vulnerable way and is coming to share with you their story, things they've been through, everything that they're rolling into their institution with, that big bag of non-academic needs that they have. Just be present for them and let them be in that space as they're sharing that with you. Okay, let's do this. Never told what college is, never guided, never stimulated, never even given a chance. You see, when you're born, you're not given a choice, opinion, or a say. Because I might have shouted, "Abort me," if I only knew the pain. I didn't get a say. I didn't ask to be born to a mom on drugs or a dad in and out of prison for unnecessary stuff. Adoption could have been an option. Then maybe this unborn baby could have had love and security. But born I was and given shame, becoming a statistic with the outstanding failure rate. All because of the choices my parents chose to make. Labeled as a failure before given a chance to succeed, expected to drop out of high school before 17. But luckily, I had people to intervene. People who showed compassion for me, tolerance, discipline, and time. And without them, I'd probably be walking the streets not knowing left from right, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. But instead, I'm striving to be a productive member of society. Yes, for them, but also for me, my future and my past. You see, I was labeled as a failure before given a chance to succeed. I turned that negative statistic into 2 college degrees. Thank you.